Okay. And Raisa, can you confirm if you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. Sounds good. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. My name is Maya Hoon. I'm a graduate student with the Water Institute at UNC, and I'll be moderating our breakout room today. And we have Raisa Mirza joining us to give us her insight and experience on working in a WASH-related non-governmental organization. And as the Director of Innovation and Knowledge Management at the One Drop Foundation, Raisa is working to address global water and sanitation issues through the lens of art and design. A transdisciplinary individual by nature, she's a self-confessed systems designer whose work is informed by community engagement, design, innovation, future studies, and behavioral science. She has worked in various sectors, including education, conservation, and food security, supporting projects in over 20 countries. So without further ado, Raisa, if you could briefly describe your role and experience working with a non-government organization like One Drop Foundation, then after that, we can start taking some questions from our audience members.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this panel or session. I don't know what to call it. I'm really open to any questions you might have, and just letting you know, feel free to ask me questions here or add me on LinkedIn. Really open and ready to support you in your careers. So in terms of working for a non-governmental organization, so I have worked in several nonprofits at this point. And the One Drop Foundation, I think I mentioned before, it was founded by the founder of Cirque du Soleil, who saw the need to support water and sanitation through the arts, because he saw that the artists and communicators and storytellers are important in supporting behavioral changes in different populations. And we saw, and now that research confirms that in order to change behaviors, you can't just tell people things, you have to actually trigger emotions, and you have to build a system around that. In terms of my role, it's quite diverse. I see myself kind of as a glue. So I work really internally and externally to support data management, learning, evidence building, and also experimentation within the organization at One Drop, but also with our grantees. Supporting capacity building and technical assistance in that. Like Maya mentioned, I have been really lucky to be working in, I actually started off when I graduated from university. I graduated in international development and natural resource management with a focus on agriculture. I wanted to work in WASH, but I was told that I needed to be an engineer. And so I was like, oh no, I can't be an engineer because I'm not very good at, all kinds of calculus stuff, and which I'm sure many of you are very good at. But so I kind of did a little bit of a divergence and worked in a few different fields. And it led me really to behavioral sciences and behavioral design as the core of my expertise, I would say. And I've been able to apply behavioral strategies to many different organizations and goals. And yeah, I just am really excited about water and sanitation. With climate change happening, we see that there's a huge need in this sector, and it's accelerating, and we really need a lot of people from all over the world and with many different talents and skills to be entering the sector and supporting and amplifying those goals. So yeah, open to questions or comments.
Thank you so much for that. I guess your elevator pitch about yourself, Raisa. And if you if the audience members could enter into the chat any of your questions or unmute yourself and ask our speaker a question. Just make sure that all your questions are respectful and such.
Yeah, I
And
see a question here on jobs in the WASH sector are limited in Canada. What is your advice to look for in a job in the sector? Good question. So I think it depends, right? So how broadly you define WASH. So if you're talking about WASH in terms of global WASH, yes, you're right. Canada has a limited sector because of we just don't have a population and that many NGOs necessarily supporting directly on WASH. But I will say that water, in my experience, water is kind of central to many, many, many of the sustainable development goals. So for example, you know, we support programs around education in girls, but they're focused around WASH and hygiene issues because menstrual hygiene is a huge determinant of why girls will pursue or not their education. We at the foundation have been working more and more on WASH in healthcare facilities. So increasing the number of professionals who are washing their hands with soap, to ensuring that there's operations and maintenance plans and routine, like routine maintenance plans for other organizations. And we're working through the health sector for that. So what I will say is that I think WASH is very central to many different organizational goals, and you can find jobs that aren't only specifically to the WASH sector, but that are very, very connected and super related. I hope that's helpful. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing more questions in the chat, but I have a question for you, if that's okay. I wanted to ask you, what skills or competencies would you say is most valuable or helpful for someone looking to work in a similar field as yourself?
I think curiosity is a big one. You know, it's often things are changing really fast and new concepts are emerging, new things will come up, and often you have to teach yourself new skills quite rapidly. So all of the skills that you're learning as in university, you know, to research a subject, to learn it rapidly and to apply it to research questions and evidence building are all really, really crucial in any sort of situation or job that you will have. That one. And the second one is facilitation. A lot of my jobs from a very young age has been stakeholder dialogues or community dialogues with different types of people, whether government or policy or communities or you know, all kinds of people really. And to be able to learn to speak, to be able to speak all of like different languages and also to be able to bring different types of people to a room to talk together is such an important and essential skill, again, for any organization you work for. And it will, you know, also support kind of your leadership development quite rapidly as well.
Thank you.
So I see a question on what are some of the possibilities for a qualitative researcher interested in WASH? So much. So if you take it from a behavioral point of view, you know, a lot of the behavioral research we do is around norms, like social norms that are coming up, trends that people don't really want to express. You know, people, I don't know, if we're talking about menstrual hygiene, lots of people don't want to talk about menstrual hygiene. There's huge taboos around WASH. Even toilet usage is a huge taboo. So learning how to ask questions without asking questions directly, learning to observe and being sort of even more of an anthropologist or sociology kind of questions are really, really crucial. And the other one is more and more we're seeing that systems change is becoming the ultimate outcome of most organizations. So that basically means that people, like many WASH organizations, are actually joining forces with other types, so like nutrition programs or gender programs, education programs, health programs. And so to be a qualitative researcher where you can also look at trends that are coming up, user-centered design. So I do a lot of work around design. So being able to look at, what are the systemic issues that are affecting users, and to be able to put words into that, and supporting people to develop user-centered strategies are going to become more and more important. So I'd say there's lots of opportunities there, and they're definitely going to emerge even more. Last question was, what are some successful behavior change strategies that you have seen and or applied throughout your career in the WASH sector? Good question, Lena. I think behavior change doesn't happen in a vacuum. Working within a system and looking at not only the specific behavior of the person, often what we'll do is be like, women need to use toilets more often in this district. But really what we've seen is that it's not the woman who is going to be, yes, she decides at the end of the day she's going to be using the toilet, but there's a whole system around her that's making it possible or not for her to be using that toilet, including, older men in her environment or family who are opposed to her to building a toilet or financing. There's, all kinds of sort of more systemic backgrounds. There's no soap sometimes there's no access to construction material. So it's really thinking about, okay, what does this person need to do that behavior? And what are the various systemic needs in around her that we can support? At One Drop, we work specifically with social art. So basically that means that we support artists to go into communities to work with people and priority groups and support people to talk about issues through art and design, because we've seen, again, that hygiene and WASH issues are often taboo, and verbally talking about them is very difficult. But when you actually create something together, you build, and it gives you the space and opportunities to talk about it. So we've seen that really working very well. How did you gain expertise and skills in user-centered design? Honestly, I just taught myself for the most part. I became really interested in it almost at the very beginning of my career, and started implementing many of the aspects of human-centered design in various contexts. And it just so happened that I kind of caught on to a trend that it was going to become big, and it has really helped me because I am, I think, pretty up there in terms of like the behavioral design, especially in WASH sector, which is great. I wasn't anticipating it, it just kind of happened, but it's something that really interested me, and it's something I really believe in. So yeah, in terms of that, I really do suggest and highly recommend that people look at job boards really often. I spent when I was younger and had a little bit more time, I spent a lot of time looking at jobs and being like, oh, this is an interesting job. Like, what interests me most about it? Oh, these are the keywords that are appearing again and again and again. And it was like, okay, this is something that really excites me. Let me find out more about it. So it's that curiosity aspect again of seeing what's out there, seeing the trends, and then making that jump of, oh, I'm interested in this, and so let me build the skills to be able to apply them to my own career.
Thank you so much, Raisa. I think we are out of time for this current breakout session. So if everyone in the audience could please go ahead and close out of the breakout room and join the next breakout room of your choice, we will proceed with the next breakout session. Okay, nice. So Raisa, I guess I'm going to let you know ahead of time that if there's like a lull period in which nobody's asking any questions, I may or may not ask you that same question again, just because I think it might be helpful for people to know, the skills that's helpful for this sort of field.
Yeah, no worries.
And I loved your answer too. Hmm.
It's quite interesting, the antimicrobial resistance work that you were talking about. It's more and more, a lot of the WASH and healthcare facility work is focusing on that as an area. So because there's so much, there's huge amount of antimicrobial resistance that's developing because of increased use of medication, and like washing your hands with soap is kind of one of the best ways to be able to prevent that through infection and sepsis. So it's a huge field actually that's coming up. So I'm sure you can find some research on it.
Yeah, I've been hearing that it's really becoming a larger public health issue. So I'm just like, it's daunting, but it's also pretty cool to be able to do research in something that's so relevant, I guess. And I am a little perplexed because I don't see many new people coming into this room. And so I'm not sure if I sent everybody out too early. Oh, okay. There are people slowly coming in.
The whole switching between platforms is a little difficult, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, shoot a quick text to, there's.
All right. How are you doing today, Miranda?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thank you. Are you a student or?
Yep, I'm a grad student at University of Colorado Boulder in the Global Environmental Engineering program, and it's my first semester here. So
nice. Are you enjoying it?
Yep, I love it so far. I just worked, so I graduated my undergrad in 2018 and then worked 3 years for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources as a drinking water regulator. And just, I've always loved the public health side, but I've always I got my certificate in global health in my undergrad and just loved that. And this program kind of brought the two together. So far, yeah, I'm really loving it, and figuring out what I actually want to do after, because it's still kind of a big question mark for me.
Yeah, well, it's very cool. We were just talking with Maya about the WASH and health facility. I don't know if you've heard there's been a really big uptake since 2018 around WASH in ensuring that every healthcare facility in the world is equipped with appropriate water, sanitation, and hygiene. It's a big part of our programs as well at the One Drop Foundation. And it's funny, that's kind of the entry point for WASH for me in a way, because I was working right before here at a consulting firm and on behavior change. And we were asked to create behavior change on increasing or the use of kangaroo mother care. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically like you hold babies really close for 24 hours, 20 hours a day, I think. And we were working in Ethiopia, and it was very striking because literally that shouldn't have been the program focus. Like, none of these facilities had water. They didn't have running soap. And so, I was kind of very perplexed as to why funding was going to that specific program and not to water and sanitation in the healthcare facilities where we were trying to do that work, because clearly it would have reduced sepsis and increased birth weights. So yeah, I think there's a huge practice, and there's a community of practice also that's starting in water and health. So obviously the two are really integrated. I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, so yeah, that hits. I'm in a WASH class right now, and we just finished up our water unit. And yeah, we talked about how like water in hospitals specifically is kind of a recent revelation that like that's not a thing. Like there's a lot of need in that sector. And yeah, we talk a lot about behavior change and how that's like usually the hardest part because you need high adaptation to see health improvements, all that stuff. So I was just curious, I guess, a little bit more about like what your day-to-day looks like and maybe some specifics of the types of projects you work on.
Yeah. Day to day. So I mean, these days my day-to-day is mostly being on a computer. But in general, you know, I work across different functions in the organization. I'm pretty transversal. So I support my colleagues with evidence building, learning, experimentation. So if there's, you know, new sort of, for example, we're integrating, you know, WASH in healthcare facilities in our behavior change work. So we'll do experiments to determine, okay, well, what will increase hand washing with soap around with healthcare providers? Should we include communities in it? Should we not? Are patients central? Are they not? So I support a lot of that innovation work through sort of evidence building and questions. A big part of my job is to honestly hold meetings. I was talking earlier about facilitation skills and how important those are for bringing different types of stakeholders together. And so, you know, sometimes I'll have to work with governments, different NGOs, with the WHO, with, and so just being able to be in a room and bring all those people together to talk is a really important skill. So yeah, I think I do a bunch of everything, to be honest, from like innovation to storytelling to communication to like impact measurement and evaluation work, and also advising programs on research, like upcoming research priorities and stuff. So I have a great job. I can't complain.
Kind of going off of that, I was curious, what's your favorite part of your job?
Oh, good question. I personally love that I do all kinds of things. I'm definitely not a standard sort of, you know, do project management type work, although I have done project management before, but I really love being able to do that. And I really love being able to refocus my teams and our grantees on impact. So really, because the sector is so broad, being able to say like, hey, okay, we're doing all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, what is going to, you know, move the needle on better health outcomes? What is going to move the needle for communities on better gender? What is going to move the needle on increasing behavior change in our program? So yeah, that is, yeah, I guess it's a pretty good privilege.
And I had another question, more of like personal side. So I'm just curious, like how often you travel for work and if you have a family, how you balance those responsibilities.
Yeah, good question. So I actually started off not in the WASH sector. So I, funnily enough, I studied international development and natural resource management in my undergrad. And then I really wanted to go into WASH, but I was told that I needed to be an engineer. And calculus 3 really scared me, so I couldn't do that. And so I ended up going more into conservation first and then into agriculture. And I spent the last, well, before 2019, I spent 8 years working abroad in different countries. So I was lucky. My partner is an international school teacher. So we usually had joint pairings where he could provide home and I could work kind of in the region. So that was really helpful. In terms of my current position now, of course, COVID has really reduced the travel. I traveled quite frequently though. So coming back to that facilitation piece, a big part of my work is bringing stakeholders and different types of stakeholders together through facilitation and through dialogue and engagement. So I would say I travel probably once a month, sometimes more than that. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. I have a family. But certainly that was one of the things that made me sort of come back to Canada from some of the countries I was working in. That said, I really, really strongly think that I would have, like some of the work that I did in different countries. You know, I lived in Rwanda, I lived in Ethiopia, I lived in Kenya, Tanzania, Japan, Bangladesh. Like in all of those countries, I actually would have had a lot more support to have had a family and a much better lifestyle and life work balance than I will in Canada, even now. Just because of obviously the nature of global development and the market. It's not for everyone. You know, you're far away from your family. Of course, there's other issues that come up, but I would really encourage young women, especially, not to be scared off by living and working in a different country because of fears about that. I do think that actually I really miss living in other countries because I didn't have to do a lot of things I have to do here that are there's just no support for otherwise.
So we are getting to the last transition time to the next breakout rooms. So people who were in this breakout room for the second session, if you'd like to move to a different breakout room, please go ahead and close out of the breakout room and join the next breakout room of your choice. But if you really desire, you can still stick around here. And we will wait and let any other guests settle in here, and we will continue at 4:44.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Miranda. Good luck.
Thanks.
Hey, Josh. Hi, Caitlin.
Hello. Can I ask a question in the interim?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, question I get a lot, and that people actually would like to say provide advice for on the platform, is switching from one sector to another. So how did you go about that? Switching from, you said you're working in conservation, natural resources, and how did you do that transition into working in WASH? Or how did you do that?
Yeah, good question. I think I always say that I'm sector agnostic, but I'm very impact focused. And so my, I guess, ultimate goal and accountability is with the communities I work with and the users I work with. And that means, a woman in a community in India interacts with WASH, interacts with health, interacts with nutrition programs, education, all kinds of things. So I really come at it from, okay, well, what is the need of this person in this sector or the program that I'm working in? So there's that. And then I worked on developing really transversal skills specifically. So, human-centered design is one that has served me really well. I kind of got in early, let's say, in the days of behavioral design and service delivery design as well. And those are all things that are kind of wildly applicable. But yeah, I would say at the end of the day is that systems aspect. I see, a lot of the issues in agriculture, in conservation, replicating themselves in WASH and in the WASH sector. And those are just issues that exist within the system. And those are issues that need to be solved. And often those are government based or even workforce related. So, you know, at the lowest level of agricultural extension workers, health extension workers, WASH extension workers, they all face similar problems around, you know, personnel, around all kinds of things. It's, yeah, I guess I was lucky in one way because the focus that I have in my career is not very technical in the WASH technicality way, although it is technical in the behavioral and systems thinking technical side. But yeah, it's really looking at the transversality and thinking of impact at the end of it is my advice.
Right. So in the end, though, OneDrop
Yeah.
recognize that, though, in hiring you, in that the transversality and the applicability of your experience that you had could be applied to your job, your future job.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier how I kind of got into the WASH specifically at OneDrop was that before this, I was working for a consulting firm in human-centered design and behavioral design. And our big project was around increasing kangaroo mother care, which is this, when babies are really small, you put them skin to skin for 20 hours a day, and that increases all kinds of things and health outcomes for babies. And I was working in Ethiopia on this project. It was a cross Ethiopia project, and they were like, "Why is this not working? The babies are not surviving." And you go there, and it's like, there's no water, there's no soap, and so my big question was like, okay, funder, great. Thank you for, paying for this great project. However, the big issue is that there's no water or soap or operations or maintenance staff in the hospitals. So what is happening around that? And it just so happened that OneDrop was actually embarking on, we just made a commitment for WASH in healthcare facilities, and it's our biggest program now. So it just so happened that I was going off that experience and was just like so angry at what was happening. And then I was like, all right, like, I suppose that this is my cue to enter the WASH sector.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Caitlin, Joe, any other questions? Oh, Isabella, hi everyone.
I guess while everyone is potentially thinking of their questions, I wanted to ask, I know you're the Director of Innovation and Knowledge Management, and so I was curious what the other divisions of the OneDrop Foundation are, and what do they do, I suppose?
Yeah, good question. So we have three big three big departments at OneDrop. So one of them is the International Programs Department. So that's the programs team, which I'm part of. So that our team kind of supports all of our grantees and implementing partners and supporting our projects and making sure that they're successful and that the grants are going well and providing technical assistance. There's another division that is, all of the administration, HR, accounting, all those things. And the last one is marketing and fundraising. So it's obvious, marketing and fundraising for our work. In the International Programs Department, we have different directors. We're a very small team. We're only 30. But so we have directors that support different functions that support innovation, knowledge management, which includes learning, monitoring and evaluation, communications, and experimentation really within, and digital transformation within the sector. I have a colleague who focuses exclusively on behavior change. So she has a whole team of experts, including artists, who support our programming around social art for behavior change, which is a flagship program of the OneDrop Foundation. And then we have all of our program managers who support who have specific sort of programs in different countries that they make sure are functional and do all of the coordination and work around.
Thank you. Does anybody else here have any questions? Oh, Caitlin, you have your hand raised.
Hi. So I heard the last of your previous breakout room, and I'm studying global environmental health, and doing field work is something that I'm interested in doing, and potentially in Bangladesh, definitely somewhere abroad. And so I guess, could you speak to your experience, being abroad, and kind of like the social factors that play into that? Because I know like social dynamics are, they vary. So that's something I was wondering about.
Do you mean social factors of me working abroad? Okay. So I've been lucky. I've worked in over 20 countries, and I've lived in 8 in 3 different continents. So I consider that a real big privilege. I'm so lucky I did that before COVID happened. In general, I think it's a lot of mindset. So first of all, it's thinking about what kind of organization you want to work for. I worked for an organization which is not in the WASH sector, but it's an ag called 1 Acre Fund. For 3 years, and was able to, they have a really great employee program, and I developed a lot of skills through them in project management and others. I personally have not lived in big cities much, just because I don't like big cities, but certainly it depends. If you're going to live in a big city, you're going to have a lot of comforts from home. You're going to be able to have that communication aspect, but maybe working, going outside at night is going to be difficult, because security is a difficult option. It really depends on what you're looking for, I would say, in terms of your social and other programs. I don't know if you're American, but I'm so jealous of Americans when I was younger, because there's so many like fellowships through, Global Health Corps, through, I don't know, you guys have like all kinds of different fellowships and stuff to be able to send you abroad for very little, whereas in Canada, those options are quite limited. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you have you're saying Bangladesh, I started off, I had an internship with WaterAid in my second year of university in Dhaka City, and we worked in the slums doing community-based sort of mapping of water points there. And I'm Bangladeshi originally, but I haven't lived there ever in my life before. And I found it extremely difficult, to be perfectly honest, just because, again, that slum environment and the people and the noise was really difficult for me. But that brought me to kind of more rural development, and I love working in rural areas and in water and sanitation. But I know other colleagues who spent a few years working in rural places, and we're like, never again. I need access to different services and people and nightlife and other things. So I think it will really depend on that. One thing I will say is that it's really important to feel safe. It's really important to choose an organization that has good healthcare policies that will support you when you're living abroad, and that you have a really good sort of work-life balance as much as possible, that you're not just stuck with expats. That happens a lot when you're living abroad, is you just are friends with the same people that you would be friends with in your own country, and that's kind of, in my opinion, besides the point. You're kind of trying to build a cultural understanding. So thinking about what environment will support your skills building and also your integration into the culture is really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
We are getting very close to the time in which everybody needs to go back to the main room, but I had a very, very quick question. I was just curious how many languages you speak, Raisa, because I know you said you lived in 8 different places.
I speak 4 languages fluently, and I speak 7 languages.
Wow, I'm so jealous. I wish I could be so talented as that.
I mean, I can't do whatever lab work you're doing, so everyone has different skills and needs, right? So I just have a facility for languages, but not other things.
Well, I don't think you should sell yourself short, because that's very amazing being a polyglot like that. So it is
Any other
4:56.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions, Joe or Isabella?
So unfortunately, we are out of time for this current breakout session, but thank you very much, Raisa, for answering all of our audience members' questions and my own questions. And for everyone in the audience, if you could please go ahead and close out of your breakout room and just rejoin the main room. They should have a closing announcement there.
Thanks, Maya.
Thank you, Raisa.